She's going to give us an overview of everything policy and where we stand today. So, Kristin, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Eric. Welcome back from lunch. As Eric said, my name is Kristin Smith, and I am the Executive Director of the Blockchain Association. Super proud to have Masari as a member of our association. Before I get started, I also want to give a shout out to Ryan Selkis, who's been incredibly committed to moving policy forward here in the United States. As any of you who follow Ryan on Twitter know, he is very passionate, to say the least, about getting good crypto policy. But what you might not know is he works tirelessly behind the scenes to coordinate the policy professionals who are working in this space so that we may better organize and coalesce around a common strategy. So thank you, Ryan, for your leadership. For those of you who don't know, the Blockchain Association is a trade association based in Washington, D.C. We work to advance public policy on behalf of our 98 member companies from the crypto industry. We do this in three main ways. Number one is crafting public policy positions with the input of our 98 member companies. We also have a lobbying team that works to both educate and advocate for changes on Capitol Hill and with federal agencies. And we also have a communications team that helps create unified messaging to tell the industry's story in Washington. I'm here today to state to you that the state of crypto policy is at an inflection point. I'm going to discuss where policy stands and how we're positioned to influence these outcomes in the future. And later this afternoon, you'll hear from many of my colleagues and friends who are also working on this space about where the policy is going from here. So I'll be honest, it's not all good. If anybody who saw the executive order reports last week and read them, it's very clear that the government, at least not all of government, shares our collective vision in this room for the power of decentralized networks. The reports that the executive order came out with focused much more on risks over opportunities, and I think it's pretty clear by reading them that the federal government is a CBDC maxi. But there's hope. Crypto policy is not a lost cause. It just means that we have more work to do. It's important to remember that government is not a monolith. There are multiple branches with multiple processes to influence government policy. And we must utilize the allies that we have in order to push policies forward that are workable for our ecosystem. If you look back over the past 10 years, the initial response from government to crypto was for state and federal agencies and regulators to provide guidance for how crypto assets and crypto networks fit within existing laws. At the federal level, we saw this starting in 2013 when the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network provided guidance on the Bank Secrecy Act. The IRS followed with their own guidance a few years later. And even the SEC, as complicated as it might be, provided guidance to the industry in 2019 about how to apply the Howey test and securities laws to crypto assets. But we've also seen agencies use enforcement actions. And in the beginning, there was no problem with this because they were going after the true frauds and the true scams and those projects and people that we probably don't want to be part of our community. But over time, the enforcement actions have escalated. And what they're doing now is attempting to regulate by enforcement. It's hard to blame regulatory agencies for using guidance and enforcement as tools to regulate us, because those are really the only tools that they have. But we need better solutions. And thankfully, over the past year, we've entered a new chapter of crypto policy, the stage of litigation and legislation. Litigation is not an ideal tool for making policy, but I believe it is an essential tool for us to use to push back when agencies step too far or fail to do their responsibilities. In the beginning, and we were talking about this earlier actually, litigation happened as a response to enforcement actions. But what happened is smaller companies didn't have the resources to take the process all the way through the courts. Later today, we'll have Ryan Selkis and Brad Garlinghouse talking about the state of the Ripple case where the SEC has pursued Ripple. And I have to give shout out to Ripple for really putting in all of the time, the money, the effort, and assembling a world-class legal team in order to push back against the SEC. We've also now seen organizations go on the offense with litigation. Our dear friends at Coin Center this summer announced that they are pursuing the IRS over some constitutional concerns. We have Grayscale that is pushing back against the SEC for failing to approve a Bitcoin ETF. And we also have our friends at Coinbase who are funding litigation against OFAC as a result of the latest Tornado Cash decision. We don't want to be here, but we do have the right to push back when the agencies are failing to do their job, and I believe it's essential that we exercise that right. In addition to litigation, we have legislation. Legislation is the best way to make policy because it allows for an open process where stakeholders can provide input. And it allows Congress the flexibility to clean up old regulations that don't necessarily make sense for the technology, and also grant new authority to fill gaps where there might be no authority today. We want legislation. Reasonable legislation will lead to workable regulation. And workable regulation is necessary to bring individuals and institutions into the crypto space. And we can't get to the next phase of crypto adoption without it. Legislation is being actively negotiated right now. So active that our head of policy, Jake Chervinsky, canceled his trip because he is working to try to come up with solutions and engage with Congress. Because it is possible that we are going to get crypto regulation done this year. And if not this year, we're going to be ready to go right out of the gate first in 2023. So this is happening. The two bills that you need to be watching, one currently is in the Senate, the other in the House, is the Digital Commodities Consumer Protection Act and stablecoin legislation. Both of these bills right now are not perfect. There are problems with them, but we are working through them and working with lawmakers on Capitol Hill to try to find the right changes that make this legislation better and workable. So where does this executive order I started with fit into all of this? The reality is it doesn't. Regardless of what those reports said, we are still in the middle of this stage of litigation and legislation, and they may have guidance and suggestions, but none of those really matter because the game right now is in the courts and it's in Congress. We'll have many panels this afternoon that are going to go deeper into both the litigation and the legislation. Two people I want to give a shout out to that are particularly important, I think you listen to. One is my dear friend Sheila Warren, who will be part of this next conversation. She is the CEO of the Crypto Council for Innovation, and she is a delight to work with and has incredible insight into where these issues are going. Along with Kara and Tamika, they're wonderful as well. And then, of course, my dear friend Miller Whitehouse Levine, who runs the DeFi Education Fund. This guy literally doesn't sleep and knows more about DeFi policy, I think, than anyone in the world. So definitely, I think he's on 2 panels, so definitely be sure to listen to him. But I think the fact that Ryan has so many different panels this afternoon focused on public policy shows that this is a really important conversation to be having right now. I want to switch gears and update you on the progress the crypto community has made with our ability to affect outcomes in Washington. There are 5 key advancements the ecosystem has made over the past 18 months to put the infrastructure in place. Some of these are proven tools that other sectors have been using for decades, but some of them are special to us as the crypto community. The first advancement is that we have strong and well-funded policy organizations. Some of these are trade associations like Blockchain Association and the Crypto Council for Innovation, but others of these are advocacy organizations like Coin Center, who's been around before probably most of us in this room were working on these issues, or DeFi Education Fund, or what we're seeing now is other groups like the Electronic Frontier Foundation or Fight for the Future that aren't crypto native but have taken on crypto issues as part of their platform. The second advancement is that companies in the crypto industry have invested in hiring professionals in Washington. This includes lobbyists, this includes regulatory lawyers, and policy communications specialists. And what's really interesting about this is it's not just the big exchanges that have teams. We have small crypto projects that are bringing people on the ground in Washington, and venture capital firms, we're going to hear from Tamika in a little bit, that have entire policy operations. I've never seen anything like this in other industries. The third advancement is political giving. When I started in this role 4 years ago, there was a huge distaste for engaging in the political process through campaign contributions. That has completely changed. We have founders, executives, we have mid-level staff at companies that are donating to pro-crypto candidates, and I think that this has been a real key change in getting more people on board. We also have more formal organizations like GMI PAC that is participating in elections across the country, HODL PAC, a group I helped found a couple years ago, and then the Blockchain Association itself just recently launched a PAC. These are all tools that will allow us to have more time being in front of candidates, teaching them about crypto, so that when they're elected, they'll be better informed and make better decisions. The fourth advancement is one that I touched upon earlier. It's the fact that companies are willing to foot the cost of litigation. Expensive white shoe law firms are expensive, and it takes a lot of time and money and resources. And so kudos to Grayscale and Coinbase and Ripple for taking the time and hiring the top lawyers we need to fight these battles. Our fifth advancement is my favorite one, and I believe it is our superpower, and that is crypto Twitter. Members of Congress are looking at their phones all day long, and when they do something good and we reward them with great comments and likes, they see this personally and it resonates with them. Similarly, if they do something we don't like, they notice that too. And I think the fact that we've been able to use this tool that the community has long used for communication and turn it into an advocacy tool is something no other industry has ever done, at least that I've witnessed, and I think we have rewritten the playbook on how to do grassroots communications. So you're probably asking, what has all of this policymaking infrastructure and these advancements led to so far, given that things are a little bit up in the air, we have this terrible executive order, et cetera. I mean, it's very clear that we have a long way to go because policymaking doesn't happen overnight. But we have had one major victory in the last year that happened as a direct result of these 5 tools. And that is the fact that crypto policy in Congress is now bipartisan. This did not happen on its own. It happened because people in this room, people in Washington, took the time to teach more lawmakers about crypto, and we made it clear to them that crypto is here for good. And as a result, we now have the legislative momentum that we are seeing in Congress today. As I said at the start of this speech, our industry is at an inflection point. Make no mistake that new regulation is coming, and it's critical now more than ever that we engage in Washington as a united industry with a unified voice. I think if we continue to work together to advance the cause, we will win in Washington. Thank you.